Today we're talking about what to do when you come across a train intersection in the city of Suffolk and that train has been sitting there for more than 5 minutes. We're joined now by Captain Epperson with the Suffolk Police Department and Robert Weber, traffic engineer with the City of Suffolk, to talk about trains specifically. And thank you both for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So one of the things certainly that motorists in and around the Suffolk area know about are trains. And they are a fact of life, and we certainly have to contend with them. However, we're really talking today about specifically situations where trains are stopped. And I think there's a limit as far as what they're supposed to be. I think was it 5 minutes?
Correct.
Is the longest they're supposed to be stopped. And I guess the question comes up, certainly for motorists, okay, this thing hasn't moved in a while. What do we do? So let's talk about what people can do to help sort of the overall process of things. And again, the City of Suffolk and Suffolk Police Department, Public Works, certainly agency-wise, do not mandate as far as that element when it comes to trains, but there are agencies that do deal with that. So let's talk about what those agencies are and what people can do. So I'll open it up to the floor to either one of you want to jump in to talk about kind of the way the public can kind of help with that process.
Sure. There's two agencies, one federal, one state, that are responsible for overseeing train operations, FRA, Federal Railroad Administration, and the SCC. And if you're stopped at a crossing and that train has been stopped for 5 minutes or more, the first thing you can do is look, and somewhere on one of the posts holding the signs for the crossing and the gate arms that come down will be a little blue sign. Mm-hmm. And on that blue sign will be a phone number. Okay. And the first thing to do would be to call that phone number. Okay. And then aside from that, both the SCC and the FRA have websites where these sorts of incidents can be reported. And so information about that, I believe, will be shown on the screen, yes. And it's also on the city website.
Very good. Now, I know that, for example, when we report streetlight outages, we need to know the number of the pole to kind of help them locate it. What information do people need to have when they make that call? Do they just need to know, I'm at this particular intersection, or what do they, crossing gate XYZ 4500? What do we look at?
The blue sign will have an identification number.
Okay.
And then you can also tell them the road that you're on and the crossing that you're at.
Got it. And then that information, of course, is shared with those agencies. What do they do with it at that time? Do we know? Do they talk to the railroads about, look, we've got a report of a particular rail line that's being utilized for longer than 5 minutes? We have to blocking up traffic. Is that kind of?
That is what they're supposed to do.
Supposed to do. Okay, very good. Now, with the police department, Captain Epperson, I know certainly people think, well, I need to notify the police department. So what would you recommend to people that are traveling? Should they call y'all, or should they really deal with the number in the situation that Robert talked about? What do you recommend?
You can do either one.
Okay.
If it's a situation and someone feels the need to call the police, they most certainly can. Mm-hmm. An officer will respond out, and if the crossing's still blocked, we will make that notification through our dispatch, yes. As well, and we'll give that crossing number. And a lot of times we also deal with malfunctioning crossing arms as well.
Correct.
So with that, an officer will respond out, notify the proper rail line, because we do have a couple that run through Suffolk on different rails. Yes. And we'll make that notification to get those repairs done as quickly as possible. Depending on the rail line, the area, the police may be needed to do traffic control. Mm-hmm. For example, we've had malfunctions on North Main Street within the last couple months, and that's a vital artery in the city, so we need to direct traffic and keep traffic flowing through there. It's not ideal, and it does back things up, but trying to keep it flowing as best as possible.
Correct.
And obviously with that officer out there, we're able to see indeed if a train is coming. So.
Very good. Robert, and as far as with the Captain Epperson mentioned the malfunction of the equipment. The city doesn't maintain that equipment. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's all maintained by the individual railroads.
Got it. I think people see it and think it's on a city road, but correct me if I'm wrong, those crossings are really right of way, and those are owned by the railroads, correct?
That is correct.
Right.
Our right of way stops at the crossing,
yes.
And railroad right of way takes over.
Very good. Now, as far as with that information, is that something as well that people should share with traffic engineering or with Public Works roadway maintenance when these situations are really, as Captain Epperson said, contact the police department, or certainly notifying the railroads themselves with the signage that you mentioned at the crossings there?
Certainly. Right? I'd start with the railroad.
Yes.
And you can call the police if it's an extended crossing. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's something that needs to be done about that.
Correct.
If they wish to let Public Works know, they can. And one thing that we can do is when you have a traffic signal that is close to a railroad crossing, there is supposed to be an interconnection between those two to allow the signal to react to the crossing. And if that doesn't appear to be working properly, then they can let us know at Public Works, and we can make sure that that preemption is working properly.
And I think, and again, when we talk about traffic engineering, it's the coordination of signals to got to keep traffic moving as far as at the best pace that it can. That's the general theory that we're talking about.
And safely, yes.
Yes, that's correct. Now, speaking of safety, I'll kind of throw this open to both of you, but Captain Epperson, I think specifically when it comes to the police department as far as rail crossings. I know people's patience, when they see the gates come down, they think, well, I don't see the train. I'm going to go and scoot across here and just zip around. Not a good idea. And certainly statistics have shown, I know we've kind of had a little more of a quiet period as of late, but we had a run there where people were just disregarding the safety measures that were in place and doing their own thing, and that generally leads to trouble, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The latter part of 2020, we had a extremely high amount of train collisions versus vehicles. There's probably as many in late 2020 as I've seen in my entire career.
Right.
So with that, when the crossings are down, they're down for a reason. Stop at the crossings, and if it's a malfunction or something, like we said, notify the police, and we can come out there and figure that out and make that notification. But if the crossings are down, don't cross the tracks.
Right.
And there's several places in the city, and Robert can correct me if I'm wrong, but all crossings in the city across public roadways are gated. They're not just flashing lights and signals. All the public ones, and I emphasize public,
right,
is that they're gated, and we kind of found that out through all of our crashes last year. So when they're down for a reason.
Right.
Don't go around them.
Right.
Please pay attention. And another thing that we've also found is don't stop on the tracks. There's plenty of places where you try to make it through.
Right.
Don't stop on the railroad tracks. So stop bars on the road are there for a reason. The big white bars that you see at intersections, that's where you should be stopping.
Right.
So don't stop on the tracks. Right. We've had several near misses last year.
Right.
Don't stop on the tracks.
It can't be put any simpler. And I think, again, people don't think about the fact that a train does not stop on a dime.
Mm-mm.
I mean, the weight, the speed, the movement of that vehicle, so to speak, it takes, and I forget what the actual number is as far as the amount of time it takes for a train to stop. It does not just, well, I see you, I'm going to put the brakes on. Oh, a car decided to go around, I'm going to stop. It doesn't work that way. Again, the train has right of way on those intersections, correct me if I'm wrong, and again, that's why the safety, to tell you, you need to wait up, let the train go through, and proceed on from there. But Robert, any input as far as safety measures and what people need to be considering, and again,
Sure.
the realization that the train is the driving force, literally and figuratively, in those type of instances.
Oh, absolutely. And Captain Epperson is correct. All of the public crossings are gated. There are a couple of private crossings out off of Portsmouth Boulevard that are not gated, but once again, because they're basically commercial entrances.
Right.
There shouldn't be a lot of traffic on those, but unfortunately we have had some crashes
Yes.
on those locations as well.
Yes.
And so it really is vital that people stop and look, and if there's a train coming, don't push it.
Yeah.
We did a study in late 2020 in response to all these crashes that were happening. And over half of the crashes are caused not by people breaking down on the tracks or getting backed up onto the tracks, but rather by people going around the gate arms.
Correct. And from a public works perspective, we talk about trains, and of course we led off by talking about trains that are stopped for more than 5 minutes, which is the one situation we want people certainly to call to report that, as we talked about train safety. But traffic engineering is working on some measures to kind of notify motorists ahead of time when we have train crossings that are just engaged. If you could talk a little bit about that project and possibly a timetable and what it would mean for the motoring public.
That's correct. We actually have two different projects that we're working on right now. The one that we'll probably see sooner is a series of warning signs that will have flashing lights on them. And it'll indicate that when those lights are flashing, there will be a train stopped on the crossing that is a little bit ahead. Yeah. And they're placed to allow motorists then to make the decision if they want to turn and take one of the viaducts at, say, Broad Street or Pinner Street.
Right.
And so right now we've got 3 locations planned for that, 2 of them on Constance Road, and then 1 on North Main approaching the Kimberly Bridge over Nansemond River.
Very good.
So the other project that we're working on, and that one we're hoping to have in place by this fall.
Okay.
We're in early stages right now where we're doing feasibility and cost estimating.
Right.
So then the other project that we're actively working on, but that I don't at this point have a timetable for, would be an app on your phone that you can use if you're leaving and you're going to another destination within Suffolk. You can simply put those two in, like similar to the way you would in Google Maps, but it will tell you if there are trains coming that will block your way and you want to reroute, or if there's crashes that you may want to reroute. As I said, that one's a little further out. I don't have a timetable on it yet, but I do know that Public Works is actively working on it.
Correct. And I think getting the information out to the public when those situations come up, alerting them ahead of time where they can make a decision early enough to reroute if they need to. Know that you mentioned about crashes, which is a different element as well, but letting people know that, because again, with all the roadways that we have, and you know this is better than anybody, with regard to the impact on traffic that one accident can have and the impact it has on things. And again, the roads aren't designed for accidents to happen. They're designed for people to continue to move and move in a safe manner. But when they do happen, it's about, okay, what do I do now? And certainly having that information early as we can make us make those educated decisions to do that. So again, recapping as far as what we've been talking about today, again, the trains, when they're stopped for more than 5 minutes, and you said the sign, Robert, at the crossing, it's a blue sign?
That's correct.
Right, okay. And look for that. There's a phone number on there and an identification for that particular crossing.
That is absolutely
that the motorist can then report that situation where the train is stopped. We're not talking about just a long train that's moving through, but we're talking about, again, the stoppage of trains for a long period of time. And as Captain Everson mentioned as well, can contact the Suffolk Police Department to help with that as well. Because again, it may be a situation where it's a longer delay for one particular reason or another, and it may involve some detours to be set up. And I know the conjunction between police and Public Works working together to do those kind of on-the-spot type projects like that come up to, again, keep traffic moving around. And just touching again on safety with those rail crossings. Again, stop, look, and listen. I mean, it's some basic words, but they really cover the thing. The safety mechanisms, that they're in place and they're down, the gates, you hear the chime, you hear everything going on, just don't go through, correct?
Sure. And this is something else to remember too, is with all the different train lines in Suffolk, everybody's moving at different speeds too. So if you see the train, you say, "Oh, I can beat that one." Well, the CSX line may move slower than the Norfolk Southern, and the Amtrak that travels on the Norfolk Southern line is definitely going to be going a lot faster than the other trains. So the speeds are a definite factor in there as well. So yeah, it's something to keep track of. And my office is right next to the train tracks, and I hear dozens and dozens a day, and you can hear the different speeds and everything. And quite frankly, sometimes they could be on that Norfolk Southern line, one heading east and one heading west. So it's something to keep in mind when you come to those crossings.
So be aware, be safe, and follow the markings and the equipment that's in place, again, to keep you safe and to keep traffic moving as quickly as possible. Once that train has cleared the intersection as well, wait for the gates to come up and then proceed safely through.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate your time today to share this great information with our citizens, to keep them informed, and let them know kind of not only what they can do now, but also some of the projects that Robert talked about that are coming up that, again, will help keep people safe and, again, keep traffic moving in the city of Suffolk. So thank you both again.
Thanks for having us, Tim.
Thank you. That would do it for this edition of On the Scene. I'm your host, Tim Kelly. We'll see you next time.